Let us pray. I will bless the Lord at all times, and his praises shall continue to be in my mouth. Almighty God, our heavenly Father, send forth, we beseech thee, upon thy servants who bear office in this country, the spirit of love and justice, that we may in all things walk before thee with steadfast purpose and a single heart, and faithfully serve in our several offices through Jesus Christ our Lord. Let us together say the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive our trespasses, as we forgive them that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. And now may the grace of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all, now and forevermore. Amen.
So that is now in session.
Messages from Her Excellency, the Governor General. Announcements by Your Honor, the President.
She's here.
I am to advise that Senator Dr. Walcott will be late, so too will be Senators Maynard and Grant.
So no more.
And
No. She's here.
yes.
Moore cannot make it. Senator Moore.
And I'm to further advise that Senator Moore will not be able to join us today.
Presentation of petitions, presentation of papers.
Mr. President, I'm commanded to lay the following documents. The National Insurance and Social Security Benefits Order 2020, the National Insurance and Social Security Insurable Earnings Order 2020, the National Insurance and Social Security Non-Contributory Old Age Pensions Amendment Regulations 2020, the Public Service General Order 2020, the Public Service Teachers Amendment Order 2020, the Annual Report of the Police Complaints Authority for the period January 1st to December 31st, 2018, the Annual Report of the Police Complaints Authority for the period January 1st to December 31st, 2019, C-190 Violence and Harassment Convention 2019, and R-206 Violence and Harassment Recommendation 2019.
Reports from select committees, questions to ministers, requests for leave to move the adjournment of the Senate on matters of urgent public importance, statements by ministers or parliamentary secretaries, personal explanations, motions relating to the business or sittings of the Senate, moved by minister.
Mr. President, I beg to move the suspension of Standing Order 22-1 and 45-2 for the remainder of today's sitting. I also, Mr. President, yes.
Yes. The question is that Standing Orders 22-1 and 45-2 be suspended for the balance of today's sitting. All honourable members in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it, and the mentioned standing orders have now been suspended.
Introduction of bills.
Mr. President, I beg to give notice of the Remote Employment Bill 2020 and move that it be read the first time. I also wish to give notice of the Integrity in Public Life Bill and move that it be read a first time.
The question is that the bills just mentioned, the Employment Bill 2020, the Remote Employment Bill, 2020, and the Integrity in Public Life Bill be read a first time. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Public business, sir. Order number 2. In the name of the Honourable Acting Leader of the Senate, to move the second reading of the Remote Employment Bill 2020.
Mr. President, this Remote Employment Bill 2020 is brought to this Honourable House at a time when remote work, or if you will call it virtual work, or some people call it telecommuting, by whatever word we call it, it is on the rise as a global trend in the labor market. Numerous studies from across the world support this. The option to work remotely is becoming a benefit that is desired by employees, according to a study done by Gallup. 1 in 3 employees say that they would switch jobs to work remotely. Productivity, too, according to the studies, have generally been on the rise when persons are working more flexibly, more remotely. And the survey has said that the ones that I've seen, I've looked at several. One that I've seen is up to 65% of the persons surveyed reported that they had increased productivity when working remotely. They have said that some of those reasons are that they have less distractions. Some have said they have improved engagement and they have less stress. These are just some of the reasons that they have given for why their productivity may have gone up when working remotely. Companies, too, who employ persons and they work remotely have made savings as well in terms of having persons work remotely or virtually, if you will. The Millennials and Generation X, and when I talk about Millennials, I'm talking about those persons who are about 26 to 40. They would have been born in that 1980 to 1994 range. And the Generation Y, and the Generation Zs, I should say, who are in that 5 to 25 range, a little bit younger. But this generation, these generations, they are ushering in a different culture of work. Many of them have said, and again, I refer to several studies out there that say that they're saying they're no longer interested as much as others before them in 9-to-5 work. They're interested in having more flexible time and having the opportunity to be able to work from any distance at any time, as long as they deliver on the outputs in a timely manner and are paid fairly for their time. There's also, sir, at this time that we introduced this bill, a class of workers called digital nomads. Yes, that's a term. And these are people
Please proceed. Yes.
Digital nomads, sir, are a class of workers who prefer to work as they travel. The internet has made work global in many different ways. And some of these workers are like programmers and developing applications and social media, and there's a whole range and list of jobs that fall into these digital nomads class. I shared all of this as background to the remote work bill, sir, to say that what Barbados is seeking to do here is very much on trend with the culture of work and the way in which labor is now moving globally. And I say, sir, that if people have the freedom to work from anywhere in the world and they have the desire to work from anywhere in the world, then why not let it be Barbados? Sir, there are positives and there are negatives to every situation and every action that we take. There are positive risks even as well as negative risks. And I'm sure, sir, you would have heard that in your own line of work. There are many, sir, both within this chamber and outside of this chamber, who will be quick to point out the negatives and the risks involved in this bill. And that, I think, is an exciting part of our democratic process. But we know, sir, that regardless of whether the risks are large, small, or medium, we have some strategic choices to make. And Barbados has made a strategic choice when it comes to this particular bill. We can choose to avoid whatever action to which we think a risk attends. That is, that we just don't take action at all in that particular area in some ways. We can mitigate it where we accept the risk, but we put certain things in place to mitigate its impact. We can transfer that risk, let somebody else deal with the risk. We can share that risk where we can include others in helping us to manage the impacts of those risks, etc. So there are many strategic responses, and these are just some, that we can make to risk in any situation. And so while we recognize much of the meaningful conversation that's going on out there about what the risks to this could be, we certainly, as a government, have made a decision that these are risks that's worth taking. Let us recall, Mr. President, that in tourism, the Barbados Statistical Service, for example, says that between 2015 and 2019, Barbados welcomed anywhere between 700,000, just over 700,000, and just over 680,000 tourists to this country per year. Let us also recall, sir, that the stay was between 4 to 7 days in cases of persons coming out of the US and Canada, for example, and 10 days or so coming out of the UK. And there are other statistics from other parts of the world. I name those because they tend to be some of the larger numbers that we have. Now, with COVID having impacted our tourism sector in the way that it has, not just with loss of visitors coming, loss of occupancy in hotels, loss of income to farmers and others who supply them, loss of income to the transport sector who transport people, loss of jobs of the persons who service the hotels and homes and other places where visitors would occupy. The impact has been significant, and when we look at the length, the average length of stay, that 4 to 7 or 10 days, we recognize that in this post-COVID environment, having people come to Barbados and sit in quarantine for 7 days or 14 days, which means they use most of their time in isolation or in semi-isolation in some cases. We recognize, sir, that we have to look at tourism differently. Because what used to be called long-stay visitors really can't be called long-stay visitors anymore, given the current climate of isolation and quarantining that must happen at that time. We have, therefore, if we are to bring some life and revive this tourism sector, we have to think of new ways in which to do it. And this bill, this Remote Work Bill 2020, seeks to usher in a different way of dealing with tourists, whereby long stay is a bit longer of a stay, where we have said to those persons who are non-residents, who can work remotely and are already engaged in that work, that they can bring the work they already have. And they can come to Barbados and they can work from here. And as long as they can prove to us that they are legitimately qualified and capable of doing the job that they have, and the bill in fact specifies some ways in which that will be proven, that they have the opportunity then to stay in Barbados for up to 12 months and work remotely from here. In their working remotely from Barbados, they would not be deemed residents of Barbados, and therefore they will not be paying income tax in Barbados. They continue to pay income tax in whichever jurisdiction already attracts that income tax. We are not seeking to make them residents at this time with this particular stamp. We are simply giving them the opportunity to have a boardroom in paradise. Mr. President, I talked earlier about the fact that some people are concerned. Some people have fears, some founded, some not so founded. But we respect that fears exist for people, because this is the first time Barbados will be doing something like that. People are not quite certain of what the outcomes will be. And when people have uncertainty, it gives room for fear to be fed. I also want to invite those who are feeling fear to understand that there are 3 other F's that Barbados has to consider at this time as we seek to breathe life into greater, give more vigor, I should say, to our economy at this particular point in time. We have had to confront COVID-19. We have had to cope with COVID-19. And we now have to respond to the post-COVID-19 world, which means we have to do business somewhat differently. And if anyone is in doubt that speed is what will make the difference to us competing globally right now, the speed at which we had to find new ways to school, the speed at which we had to find new ways to work, the speed at which we had to find new ways to give people food and serve them in different ways, the speed with which we have had to go through change and transition should certainly be an indicator to us. And so the 3 other F's that I would want those who are in fear to consider is that in giving greater vigor to this economy, we have to be focused, we have to be fast, and we have to be flexible. And those 3, particularly in seeking to move with greater speed, have certainly urged us today to suspend some of the standing orders so that we can do this bill quickly and in one go. Because as many of you will have heard, and we were discussing earlier even before this sitting officially started, Mr. President, other countries of the world are already jumping on this bandwagon, and they're seeking to get ahead of Barbados. And so we have to make sure that we are being fast, focused, and flexible in terms of responding to the competitive environment in which we live as it relates to tourism. Sir, I will not go through the entire bill. It is a short bill, and I know that all the honorable members of this chamber have read it in its totality. The thinking in this bill, as I mentioned earlier, is that this will be for non-residents seeking to work remotely, and that these persons are not coming here to take work from any Barbadians. These are people with work already, and they're just doing that work that they've had from somewhere else. But they're not intended to be working in Barbados, and who knows, Mr. President, they may even engage some Barbadians in helping them to do some of that same remote work. There may be opportunity in this. Sir, how would it work? Persons will apply. The application form is online as we speak, or as I guess it should now be in test form online, I believe. Persons are asked to upload their biodata and their birth certificates, and there's a whole list included in the bill of the types of documents that must be provided. Once they apply, Mr. President, they're then vetted. There is a vetting process supported by the Joint Regional Security Services. And then there are choices. They can either be approved, they can be denied, and even if they are approved and later on we discover something that we did not know at the beginning, that approval can be revoked. And so it is within the Chief Immigration Officer's authority, supported by the Minister, approved by the Minister, to be able to approve, deny, or revoke this 12-month stamp. And of course, once they are approved, they come, they work remotely, they live, they consume, they spend, and all that they do here will contribute to a better life for all of us here in Barbados. And sir, it is with these few words that I beg to move that this bill be read a second time.
Thank you. I recognize Senator Frank.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I shall not be long. I do not oppose the concept of this bill, but I have some observations that I would like to draw to the attention of the Senate. I recognize that government has to find a way to get this economy going, and this is one of those things. But my problem, sir, is that I like to find out before the NBC, because that's where I heard about this from, the NBC, you know. Our ministers of government in Barbados over the years have a way of traveling overseas or speaking to people overseas and telling them about government policy before they tell us. I don't like it. I find it offensive, and especially now since I'm here in this Senate, that I believe that if government is going to introduce a measure, they should let me know first before they tell the world. That is one idea. Sorry, sir, but I have a little problem with my throat. I recognize, and what Senator McConnell said about other people in the world is true. I recognize that Barbados has to move fast before we get left back on this. Already, Bermuda, on the Saturday paper, I'm not going to quote the Saturday paper because you can't quote papers, newspapers in here, but the Saturday Advocate brought a story where Bermuda is introducing this one-year certificate, and it says that Bermuda is following Barbados to introduce this one-year residential certificate. However, I went one step further, and I went to the Bermuda Parliament website, and the Minister of Labor in Bermuda, he made a ministerial statement about this matter, and their objects were to increase the residential population, increase economic activity, provide greater job security for Bermudians, and to enhance the marketability of Bermuda as a place to reside, visit, or do business. The thing, sir, is what I'm concerned about here is that Barbados has set a price on the certificate as $4,000, and if it's a family, $6,000. Bermuda has priced their certificate as $263, but Bermuda dollar is equivalent to a US dollar, so it's 263 US dollars for all intents and purposes. Now, if I had the option to come into Bermuda or Barbados, and I had to pay $4,000 or $200, I might be tempted, because Bermuda is still a paradise too. Not as much as Barbados, but me and my Bermudian friends will argue about that over and over. But that might be a consideration for someone. So we might be pricing ourselves out of the market, a market that we took initiative on, and then somebody else come in and undercut us, and not even by half. See, so I think that is something very relevant for the government to consider, the cost of these certificates. However, sir, there's one area of this bill that troubles me, and it is in the definition on page 11. Remember page 11. Page 11. The original bill that came to us didn't have this. This came out yesterday, and it told us that we will replace, the House replaced it yesterday. So replaced this bill yesterday. And in it, in the instructions, it says here the definition of terms. It says the individual who will be engaging in remote work, that's the applicant in Barbados. The definition of family, and this is what I have trouble with. It says family is the applicant, spouse, partner, and dependent or dependents. Sir, are we trying by this piece of legislation to get something through the back door? I'm not punning. In Barbados, we know what a family is. Our Family Law Act tells us clearly what a family is in Barbados. If we want to change that, we should be bold enough to come out and tell the country, this is what we propose to do, not sneak it in. Because partner can mean felony girlfriend, a felony boyfriend, a girl and her boyfriend, or a girl and her girlfriend. This needs to come out of this bill, because the only contentious part of this bill that I'm seeing is this. And I am saying that the government is wrong for trying to sneak this provision through the back door. This needs debate in the country. The government promised us a referendum on, what do we call it? They promised us a referendum, not on weed, I'm talking about referendum on same-sex marriages and that kind of stuff. This is a way of bringing same-sex partners into this country legally without the population having a say. So that is not fair to this country. Mind you, I'm open-minded. I'm one of those fellas, I don't care who you live with and who you got. That's your business. I'm not getting in your bedroom. But if you are running this country for the benefit of all of us, and we have varying and various beliefs, you should let this country know what you are proposing. Don't sneak it in. That is a disservice to this country. It is, I was tempted to say dishonest, but you can't say that in here, so I'm going to refrain from doing so. It is certainly unfair and unreasonable to sneak things like this in without the country knowing. I said, I have no difficulty with the bill. I understand the concept of the bill. I understand what we are doing here and why. But I don't understand why we had to put this in. This was not in the original bill, the one that I read when it first came out. So this came out yesterday, and if I weren't vigilant, I would have slipped past me, because this thing only came into this bill yesterday. Was this some sort of skullduggery? Was this intended? Because I heard some person commenting. I didn't read all the Facebook thing that the body sent me. I just deleted it because they're nonsense. They'll think they can run this country from behind. No, if they want to run the country, they can go and get elected instead of trying to force government into positions, because this government seems to not to like adverse comments and stuff, so they try to shift to suit the people making the comments, because we want to make friends. Well, this is not something to make friends on, because I'm telling you, I'm not a pastor, but I'm telling you, churches in Barbados will, if they had known about this, they would have been speaking up today. We can't do this. We can't do this. No. This is absolutely wrong. Mr. President, I have one other thing to discuss. Besides that, right? I made my point, my position on, and I think that section of that definition of family should be clarified, and partner should be removed. We have, unless you define partner, because partner is not defined. My next concern is that the Immigration Act of Barbados, if you're applying for any status in Barbados, there are certain things that you have to go through. You have to get medicals if you're having a long stay. Any one of those long stays, see, but it's a work permit, a long-term work permit, immigrant or resident. You have to let people know that you haven't got the TB and that kind of stuff. We have substituted that for having valid medical insurance. That's not good enough either. We want to know that people come among us don't bring anything communicable that could affect the health of this country. But also, we have the situation where you're not required to have a police certificate of character. In the application form that forms the schedule to this bill, you are asked if you have you ever been convicted of a serious criminal offense? And you have to say yes or no. That too, sir, cannot suffice. Because if I'm a crook and you ask me that, I can say no. When you find out, so I might have been working here for 11 months already. So what you can do? Revoke my status? So we need even if we want them to come quickly, let them know that if you say no here, and it is found to be no, because we're going to continue to do our checks, because we're trying to get them in fast. So if you get them in fast, you wouldn't have sent Interpol to get the information from them. Because when you worked in immigration, you used to send the person's information to the special branch, and special branch would do their things. And it didn't happen. The clerk would tell you he was an immigration officer too. It didn't come back in a timely manner. So we hear people applying saying, "Oh, I apply ever since and I get through," and sometimes it's not immigration's fault. It is that immigration is waiting for a response to make sure that bringing Jimmy Hoffa or anybody to Barbados. So I would want this to be known that by people coming in, that if you say no, we will still be checking on you. This is not in the act. This act has, for all intents and purposes, removed the strictures of the Immigration Act from these people. So if you're going to remove them or implicitly repeal them for those persons, you have to be a bit tighter. I understand you want to do this quickly and you rush and you got through with it. I am not, as I said, opposed, but I'm not even opposed to the speed of this one, because other people now are trying to jump on this bandwagon, and if we get there too late, Barbados will be left having trumpeted it, and we lost the advantage. We did it in international business, because right now, if you look and see that Barbados was the pioneer of international business in the Caribbean, but now they're more under Tom Adams. But right now we are not getting the type of international business because we are not moving with the kind of speed that we should when things change. So other jurisdictions move and the people go there. So I am not for 1 minute saying that government should stop what they're doing and come back and go through a whole long process. No, I'm saying that there are issues that need to be corrected, and we can do it either by ministerial order or whatever else, because mind you, ministerial order can take a long time too, because if I know this minister, he don't move at any particular speed. But so we gotta find something else. We definitely gotta find something else. I just had here prove minister, but then I remember who's the minister responsible for immigration. His top speed, is stop or reverse. So if you're going to move with speed, you need to get somebody else to do it. That aside, sir, I will repeat, I'm not opposed to the concept. Barbados has, and if Barbados is leading, I don't mind, sometimes we have to show the world that but when we're doing it, we've got to do it right. Make sure that these angles are covered. And also, sir, when we are doing things like this, don't sneak a little one past us, because the partner is sneaking something past not only us here, it's past the country. I'm sure the country will have a say on this. People coming here and bringing their partners, whether they are same-sex partners and things, and it is legislated. So this is, as I said, toe in. You get your foot in the door. I have nothing further except thank you very much, Mr. President, for indulging me.
Senator Wiggins, your turn, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and good afternoon for giving me the opportunity to speak. I think yesterday there was a regional panel discussion on the impact of COVID on the tourism sector in the Caribbean and what countries
would need to do in order to jumpstart their economies. And it's at this point that I want to say that Barbados went ahead, and we have to compliment the government of Barbados, Mr. President, for this bold initiative that the Prime Minister has taken in introducing this Remote Employment Bill 2020. She went on a media blitz. All the major networks around the world have picked it up, this brilliant initiative that she has introduced to this country, because we are now balancing lives against livelihood. And we have to find a way to support the people of Barbados where we can earn a salary as well as where we can eat. And it's a difficult balancing act that the country has to do. And I do think that with the Prime Minister has become our biggest asset and our biggest marketing for the country, because she doesn't leave now a lot for us to do who serve in other countries to promote Barbados. And because of this international media blitz, Mr. President, that she has done, I personally have had many inquiries from around the world. I have had inquiries from the large network that I have in the United Kingdom. This is outside the Barbadian diaspora, which include members of Parliament in the UK Parliament, who have messaged me, because I still have my UK number, asking for more information with respect to this good initiative that the Prime Minister has introduced. I have had inquiries from St. Kitts. I have had inquiries from Suriname. I got an email from somebody, I don't know where they got my email from the United States. And I have had personally inquiries from as far as Australia. So it tells you that this initiative is an excellent one. And we need to stimulate this economy, as I was saying earlier, because when persons come here to work in Barbados, they are going to be renting accommodation, they're going to be renting cars, they're going to be going to the supermarket, they will be visiting doctors, they will even be going to church and putting in some offering in the church pew. And they might possibly be looking as well to, if they bring their family, the children might very well be going to private schools. So the economy, Mr. President, will be stimulated in many ways. And I am sure that within the last several months, our senator, the chairman of the port, I think I was told there are over 22,000 visitors that were on board the ships that we have repatriated to their various countries. That gesture that Barbados offered all those people that were on board that cruise ship, I know that that positive effect is going to come back to us. And some of these passengers, Mr. President, will gladly take advantage of this initiative that has been offered to come back and spend time in Barbados and work remotely for 1 year, be on the beach lying down with their laptop and their cell phone, and they're in their office right there. So I think it's a fantastic initiative that many, many, many people, I'm sure there have been many, many queries that are going to take advantage of this. And Mr. President, as you may know, we have a ship's registry in the United Kingdom. And I was thinking, Mr. President, that we can reach out to countries like Hong Kong that has now been, should I say, reabsorbed into China. And a lot of billionaires, Mr. President, live in Hong Kong, and they own a lot of these luxury liners. And Mr. President, I don't think that they would be averse to come in and living in Barbados and having their ships flying the Barbados flag, because Barbados then as a country would be able to gain fees, lots of revenue from these billionaire owners of these ships. And some of them will buy homes here in Barbados, and all that, Mr. President, will stimulate the economy. So I do believe that there are many, many initiatives that can be taken through this remote employment bill. And I sincerely hope that with all the queries that we're having, as someone said, if you got 1,000 queries, it does not necessarily mean that translates into 1,000 persons taking advantage. But surely, within the next couple months or so, Mr. President, I'm sure that many people around the world will take advantage of those opportunities. And I know that many Barbadians are concerned about the fact that many international persons will be coming into the country, and they're worried about the COVID situation. But I do believe, from what we recognize over the last 6-7 months or so, that the government and the public health officials have the whole COVID situation under control at our ports of entry. And I do believe that one of the things that I've been reading about would be these persons are required to have a PCR test 72 hours in advance. And those who do not have those tests, Mr. President, are going to be tested here at their own expense, or we will, for Barbadians, we will obviously be testing them. So, Mr. President, I am very confident that within the next few months or so, lots of persons who have never visited Barbados, or those 25,000 passengers who have been repatriated from the cruise liners that are here, will be taking advantage of this great opportunity. And I look forward to seeing Barbados rise again in terms of its GDP and supporting all the programs that we have here. And with those few words, Mr. President, I do thank you for the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Senator Greenidge next speaks.
Thank you, Mr. President, for recognizing me. I stand, sir, this morning in support of this 12-month Welcome Staff program, as it is unofficially called. In truth and in fact, it is really the Remote Employment Bill, and I fully support it. Mr. President, the ability to be in Barbados and to be doing work elsewhere is nothing new. Nothing new at all. When persons come here on conferences in particular, they do this all the time. You can see their heads down in their tablets, their heads down in their laptops, and they are actually working here in Barbados, and that is in relation to their workplace in Canada, in the US, or wherever. And it is a fact. Many of them travel with their laptops and their computers for precisely this reason. This is the purpose they bring them along, doing work while they are here. Sir, when some of our Barbadian people, when some of us go overseas as well, we do it too. We do it too. We take along the equipment and we work. When abroad, we are in constant contact with our office here in Barbados. Indeed, sir, earlier this year, I traveled with the Speaker of the House and the Clerk of Parliament. And, sir, I was so jealous. Honestly, I was. How they were able to be beside me, whether we are at breakfast or whether we are, and they are working from there and doing all the work here. And poor me can't do anything at all. I felt really, really jealous. I felt bad. But that's a fact. If only I could do it. So I know, sir, that this is something that happens when we go abroad as well. Now, sir, this particular piece of legislation which we are discussing this morning, it actually gives license for such work to be done here by visitors in a more organized way. It is not the matter now of the typical tourists coming to Barbados for 1 week or for 2 weeks and so on. These persons will be contributing to the economy by staying here for 1 year. And as Senator McConney has said, as Senator Wiggins has said, that these persons will be staying perhaps at a vacant house, perhaps in an apartment, in a guest house. They may even be renting a villa, staying at a hotel, and of course, they may be visiting Oystins occasionally. They'll have to go to the supermarket from time to time. They will be making a contribution to the economy. And as I make this point, sir, I am forced to reflect as to what an amazing amount of money an institution such as Ross University has made to Barbados, the contribution that it has made. And while on that point, sir, it doesn't surprise me now how very concerned Dominica was when they lost that institution. As you look at it now, you see why there was that regret from Dominica. And sir, we are hoping that just as the Ross University students have made a contribution to this country, that these remote workers will do the same thing for Barbados. So what is there in this act, in this bill, for us to quarrel about? Absolutely nothing, sir. Absolutely nothing. There is going to be a register with the names of those who have been awarded the certificates, and that will be kept, sir, I believe, by the Chief Immigration Office. Nothing to quarrel about there. The remote worker must have proof that he or she makes an income of $100,000 or more per annum. Because, sir, we want that person who comes to Barbados to be an asset to us, not a liability. This is not the kind of person who will come to Barbados and then, if something happens and they're ill, they can't even go to the doctor and so on. We don't. This obviously, some thought must have gone into this. What is there about that for us to quarrel about? We do not want the person to be someone who is merely eking out an existence. We want someone who is self-sufficient. Yes. Sir, in effect, what Barbados gets is a 12-month tourist with freedom to work for a small fee. Senator Franklin is saying perhaps that our fee is not small enough. But, sir, I'll be brutally honest with you that one of our main concerns is to get some foreign exchange. And this country, I believe, is an attractive country. And I do not think, sir, that a price or a fee of $2,000 US is an excessive fee. I still believe, sir, that we will benefit from this endeavor. Sir, there will be no income tax on the part of the worker, the remote worker. What is there to quarrel about? There's nothing there in the act for us to make a big furor about. The worker may apply, not automatically get, but the worker may apply to have the grant, the certificate extended for another year. Who can apply, sir? Anyone who is not a Barbadian citizen. Anyone who is not. So CARICOM citizens can apply as well. We are not saying only Canadians, only Americans. CARICOM citizens can apply as well. And, sir, as Senator McCartney has said, the legislation will pose no threat whatsoever to Barbadian jobs. Will pose no threat to Barbadian jobs. The remote worker, sir, is only allowed to work in that particular engagement for which the stamp is given. The work that comes here is their work that they are doing. They're not coming to take away any Barbadian's work at all. It is just the location. Just the location. If that Canadian person who comes here is an employee of Canadian Tire, doesn't take away any work from a Barbadian. If that particular person who comes here worked for the Bank of America, that is their work. They're not taking away any work from the Barbadian. What is there in the act for us to quarrel about? We are saying, sir, to the world, we are saying to the world that we are a safe destination. That is what we are saying. We have managed our pandemic well. We have managed it well. We're saying this to the world. Sir, if we had managed this coronavirus episode, sir, badly, I can tell you one thing, that this morning, this bill would not have been discussed at all. If we had managed it better, we would not have been so bold as to go and invite people to come to Barbados. And, sir, there were so many initiatives that we put in place And even as I think about it, sir, I think of those Cuban nurses who are still in place here in Barbados. Think of our own nurses, first of all, who were on the front line and did such an excellent job for us. Our own people. These are the people who helped to make us a safe destination. I understand there's some Ghanaian nurses who should be in place shortly, if they aren't already. And we built a state-of-the-art facility in St. Lucie, which has been praised by those who are in isolation there. All this speaks well for Barbados. Sir, we had taken steps to be prepared long before, even before we had our first case of the coronavirus. We are a safe destination. And this is the message we are sending to the world. We are safer than most. And sir, there's nothing for Barbadians to get suspicious about. These persons who come here, sir, will not be given any special treatment. They wouldn't be considered to be more than the Barbadian people. It is not a free ride. Yes, we have said that they can bring their partner, their spouse, their family. But sir, let us suppose that while they're here, that the family comes in to look for them. That family has to adhere to the necessary protocols like anybody else. They're not going to be treated any differently to any other visitor. What is there for us to be quarreling about? In fact, sir, I like the words of the health minister, Minister Bostic, when he says, not even diplomats will be exempted. Not even diplomats will be exempted. Sending a strong message. This is not a play-pay country. Not even the diplomats. The health of Barbadians, Minister Bostic has said, comes first. I'll be honest with you though, sir. I'll be very honest, and this is, well, I almost say Kathy Greenwich talking. But call me so, that's my name. I know about nothing else. Sir, I would be extremely selective, and I'd be very careful about where these remote workers come from. This is my personal view. I would look at the Canadians, perhaps, the English, perhaps. I'll be brutally frank with you that I am very concerned about what is going on in the United States of America. I am very, very concerned. And I think, sir, it is something which we have to look at too. I'm very, very concerned when I look at what's happening in Florida. You know, it's so, and it's a place that I visited so often and felt so safe about. And now, the Bajans will say all hell has broken loose. Sir, truth be told, sir, Barbados has had an excellent international profile and continues to have a great reputation at the regional and the international level. During the pandemic, The country was praised by Trinidadians in particular, praised by cruise ships, praised by international organizations. And I do believe that one speaker so far has actually, even though they didn't mention the name, when on one of the networks we saw one of the biggest celebrities perhaps in the world say, "Let us go to Barbados. Barbados is calling us. Let us go there." We have an excellent international record. Sir, the effect of the coronavirus continues to make governments the world over think outside the box. This pandemic, sir, continues to force them to be creative. And I can tell you, sir, when it comes to creativity, the Mayor Motley-led administration is an extremely creative and proactive government. It is an extremely creative and proactive government. This is not a time, this is a time for action. Not next year. Not next year. Now is the time for action. We have a duty, sir, to bring back this economy to life. Right now, sir, tourists are not coming to our shores. Our revenue train, Mr. President, has crashed. And we cannot just sit down and twiddle our thumbs. We have to get up and do something. We have to try new things, sir. We have to experiment with new ideas. We hope that this particular program works. This government, sir, gets an A+ for effort. It gets an A+ for effort. In the words of the Prime Minister, sir, we have a duty to try. We have a duty to try. And sir, the government, I know, will make every effort to ensure that this initiative works. And it wouldn't surprise me, and as Senator Franklin said, it wouldn't surprise him either, if the entire Caribbean catches on. It wouldn't surprise me at all. Because this country has always been a leader in the region. And there are other countries around us, sir, that will agree that this is a good idea. And we are known, thankfully, sir, for thinking outside the box. We are always admired for our ideas. I can tell you, so you see that initiative that the Prime Minister came up with about a year ago, something called Regathering. Brilliant idea. Brilliant idea. But it was cat-spraddled by the coronavirus. But it is testimony to creative thinking and to her fertile imagination. And sir, on that particular program, I sat down with about a dozen fellas. And I decided, you know something, I can make St. Philip own the best of the regathering. It would have been this month in July. And I sat down and there were 85 names of people who were coming back here, coming back to St. Philip, coming back to the Princess Margaret School. They were old teachers, old students, everything. And I was the person who was going to make it happen. Get cat sparrow, sir. Get cat sparrow. But it was an excellent idea. Excellent idea. We think outside the box. And sir, talking about Barbados and ideas, I can tell you, sir, that in the early 1990s, there was nothing right happening in Barbados. And sir, it looked as though the country was on the brink of disaster. And the government didn't know what to do. And then, sir, the workers of this country said, look, we can no longer ask for an increase. Look at how this country is going. And so the employers of this country, the private sector, said, you know something? We cannot be sending home people any longer. And they all sat together and said, let us form something called a social partnership. Unheard of in the region. A social partnership where people who are always at one another's throat said, let us sit down and save Barbados. And sir, they met together. And that was the birth of the social partnership. And you know what made me realize what an excellent thing it was? Every conference I went to at the ILO, I was Labour Minister, sir. They always found a little room to put me in to talk to a group of people, a committee or something, about why Barbados' social partnership was formed and how it was working. And I felt particularly proud of what this country had done. Everybody admired it, sir, the social partnership. So this country is known for making such decisions. I know that, and I heard it yesterday from the leader of the opposition, he said that we are rushing it. Too much speed to get this thing passed, and so on. But as his second lieutenant said this morning, sir, why should we wait until other countries next door run with the idea and get a head start on us? Why? Why should we wait? This is not the time, sir, for us to be playing around. No, sir. In the words of Senator McConney, she said, you have to get some speed. She said, speed is absolutely necessary. We have to be, your words, Senator McConney, fast, focused, and flexible. So this is not a, we are looking at it government. I know of another government, every time you ask them to do something, oh, we're looking at it. We are not, or we are looking at it government. Sir, I go a bit further. And I say to this Senate, sir, that any opposition to an idea such as this one can only be opposition for opposition's sake. Can only be opposition for opposition's sake. But politics being what it is, you know, sir, it wouldn't surprise me. Anybody who loves Barbados, anyone who loves Barbados, be it somebody from Solutions Barbados, somebody from the PDP, the DLP, the UPP, wherever you come from, Anybody that loves Barbados should support this measure. Should support this. This is a clear attempt to save Barbados. But I know, sir, and you know as well, that there are people who call themselves Barbadians who would not want one single person to take up this offer of remote employment. That is how some people think. They would want it to fail. And they would want that because if it succeeds, it would redound to the benefit and the credit of the government. And they would not want it to succeed, sir. Because they do not care about the country's recovery. That is not their primary concern. Not the recovery of Barbados. Mr. President, I want to say, I hope my time still have a little time, a little about our domestic, our local, our Barbadian remote employment. Because we have some of that too, you know, sir. And I want to say just a few words on it. Because there's a fairly high level of remote employment, which is away from the office, away from the workplace, going on today. And COVID has been the instigator in this regard, forcing us to resort to remote employment. So a lot of people's lives and life situations in Barbados will change and have changed because of COVID. Remote employment, I believe, in some areas of Barbados, sir, is here to stay. Is here to stay. I never thought that I would have heard, well, the two gentlemen who I heard saying this, one is a little older than me and one is my age, so that you know how they're really old people. But I never thought that I would hear them say, and these are two, Mr. Jones, and you're looking at me like if you know who the people are, two attorneys at law, sir, and I heard them, I was surprised, very experienced fellas, say, I prefer to work from my office and to work from my house rather than go to court. Because nowadays, I stay in my office and I do a case right there in the office. I could stay home and do a case right there in my house before the court. I am before the court. I am before the court. I never thought that I would live to say that I like being in front of the computer and doing the case, because the first time I ever sat there in front of the computer was to do a case in this COVID time. First time ever. And I like it. That's the thing about it. I like it. And I heard, in fact, one of the fellas said to me, look, I only need a place to talk to my clients. I'm a bit scared for them to come to my house and so on. He said, I won't even mind if I could meet them in the library or meet them in Queen's Park. Once I get somewhere, and I would work from home all the remaining days of my life. So, yes, remote employment has reached Barbados, and I do believe that it is here to stay. And I say that, sir, but although personally, sir, I like to see people face to face, and I would rather see them than through a Zoom lens, but, you know, it really and truly, it is happening, and it's going to be here for some while. But the point I'm making, sir, is this, that legal issues which did not exist before are now rearing their head. And you don't start, sir, thinking about these things until they catch up with you. Only then, when they catch up with you, do you address them. And we now have to think about certain situations. And at this stage, when we're thinking about it, sir, every single thing about remote employment is not going to be perfect because it is still a learning process. The law now has to walk hand in hand, walk parallel to the developments that have taken place in remote employment in Barbados. For instance, sir, if you are injured, and I know that people like Senator Franklin and Senator Moore, this would be, if you are injured while working at home, have you been injured on the job? No. I leave that there for what it is. According to the law, sir, the employer is to provide a safe place of work. If you are injured in your home, is the employer responsible? I know, sir, that if you were in the office, somebody could see when this chair moved from under you or when you slipped and fell. But if you are at home, that is more difficult to prove. Now, does a safe place of work extend to your house? We have been taught, sir, that in law, the expression course of employment, say in order for you to be injured during the course of your employment, sir, you must have regard for the time it happened, for the place it happened, and the circumstances under which it happened. Those are the three things: the time, the place, and the circumstances. So, you must be within the time frame, you must be at the proper place, and you must be doing something which you are employed to do. So, sir, if you were in the office and there was a hole in the office floor and your chair slipped through it or your foot or whatever, yes, employer responsible. Even if you were in the kitchen, in the lunchroom at the office, and the microwave or whatever blew up, yes, the employer. If the chair crashes onto you, yes, the employer. But sir, if you are sitting at home in an ergonomically unfriendly chair and something happened, is it the fault of the employer? Truth be told, sir, the more I think about it, the more I realize that you may have to renegotiate certain working contracts. You may very well have to do so, sir, and make those contracts include or exclude certain things. Coming home now. Sir, the employer, remember, did not give you the chair. He didn't tell you which chair to sit down in. And the employer is going to ask, why should he be responsible? Well, this, I believe, that the workers and the unions will have to take up and ensure that our safety and health regulations cover them when they are at home. Sir, I know I can see that index finger of yours telling me the time is up, but I will leave all the other discussion on remote employment locally for another time. I very much support, sir, the remote employment bill which is before the Senate. I'm grateful, sir.
Thank you, Senator. We will next hear from Senator Nurse.
Thank you for recognizing me, Mr. President. I think one of the lessons probably and things that we have learned coming out of COVID-19 is really the amount of work that can be done remotely. And it is amazing. I am not that technology minded, but I have learned very quickly how to use Zoom. I've had several meetings now using Zoom. I have been able to organize all of my banking through the assistance of my young daughters electronically. And you begin to realize that really and truly you don't need a physical space, significant amount of physical space to be able to get on with the business of your workplace, with your personal business, with the business of government even. There are lots of opportunities which we have seen. I've seen my daughters, again, who work in government, working from home, several meetings, and sometimes way into the evening. They have been working at meetings, working remotely at home. So this bill, I think, recognizes and seizes an opportunity where people not necessarily working at their home base where they live, but coming to Barbados and continuing to do their work efficiently from their workplace several thousand miles away. And I want to applaud the government, therefore, in this situation, for attempting to get the tourism sector back up and running. We know, of course, that the tourism sector represents our hugest source of revenue to the country, and therefore, any new products that we can add, any new things to try to get that aspect of our economy back up and to get the tourism product moving and working again must be applauded. I know that Barbados is not necessarily the first, of course, country that is doing this. And I rather suspect that a lot of other countries will get on the bandwagon and try to mimic this product that we are promoting. But I dare say this early start for us, and it is good that we have gotten a jump start and that we are thinking outside the box, as Senator Greenidge suggested, I think shall hold us in good stead. Barbados has done a very good job in the past of marketing its tourism products. And therefore, I think that with the level of marketing and so on, which is obviously going to be put into the efforts to get these people, these visitors here, I think we will be able to stay ahead of the game and stay ahead of the pack. But I should also want, I also want, though, Mr. President, to say a special congratulations to the Prime Minister, because I think this is a product where I saw the Prime Minister grabbing hold of the initiative and leading from the front. And I think that the amount of time and effort which is put in going on the international media, in doing interviews, etc., on media like the BBC, etc., has done a lot already in terms of marketing this product worldwide. And it is a cost. It is a marketing cost that we would find. We would have to think twice about it as to whether or not we could afford that level of the cost of doing this marketing if we had to pay for it. And so as I said, I congratulate the Prime Minister on the leadership given in this regard. Mr. President, I think it is a good initiative. I hope it works. I hope that we can make sure that the necessary infrastructure is in place, that those people, those visitors who will be coming here for this 12-month period can be satisfied that we do have the facilities and we do have the services of the standard which they invariably will be expecting to have here if they're going to be working remotely. And I raise that point not to be negative or not to throw cold water, but to recognize that we in Barbados have had some challenges with virtually all of our utilities within recent times. Mr. President, we know of our water situation. It has not improved, it has gotten worse. And, on a daily basis, you now hear of of areas that we hadn't been hearing about previously who were experiencing difficulties in getting water. We know of our telephone systems and the challenges that we have been having. Our internet connectivity is always not as good as we would like. I have been on a Zoom meeting within recent times where, about 5 minutes after the meeting started, it just dropped out and I was disconnected from the meeting. Our electricity, I've also noticed, Mr. President, seems to be not as stable and not giving us the level of service that we once used to be accustomed to from our electricity service. And so I make these points, and of course we know that when the electricity goes off, we now have no telephone system, and therefore no internet system. And so I make these points because I think it is important that we recognize if we're going to attract people who are supposed to be coming and working here remotely, they will invariably expect to have levels of services equivalent to the service they get in their own country. They have to be able to operate at that kind of level, and therefore it is important that we don't invite them here to come on this 12-month visa, and then we get very bad publicity because of the services. Because that will not only then impact on these longer stay visitors, but of course it's going to impact on the more regular visitors, which we rely so heavily on for our tourism revenues. So we have to get it right. We have to ensure that we nudge along all our various services to ensure that we have a levels of service that meets the expectations of those visitors coming here. The other thing that I would just also like to mention, of course, and this is not anything new, from as long as I can remember, I've always been here, Barbados, a very expensive place to live. Cost of living in Barbados is high. And we have to make sure that, again, this could create problems, because if you're inviting someone here for 12 months, and we are not necessarily only inviting people who are the high-end category, because we're looking at people with of over 50,000, I think it was 50,000 US or over, and that is not considered a significant income. So we are really looking at lower, middle-income type individuals to start off with, who will have to measure that income very carefully. Because obviously, if they're going to come here and they're going to be living here for a year, they have to live as they're also going to be looking to live as economically as they can. They probably will still have to maintain and to pay all of the various expenses back at home, and so therefore they're not going to pick up and come here in a high-cost destination to live for a year just because it's nice. But the reality is that is going to be, I think, a very important decision that those visitors that we are encouraging to come here will obviously take in. And therefore, I would think that the hotels, the guest houses, the various accommodations that such visitors will be using will have to begin, I don't want to say think outside the box again, but begin to come up with more sensible or packages which are tailored more for this group of visitors that will be coming. Because I suspect that these are people who will probably be using Airbnb and these sort of facilities. They'll probably be using guest houses. They're not going to be going in hotels where you pay whatever a night. And so making sure that we package and that we price products which can meet the budgets of this particular group of visitors is going to be very important. Mr. President, I know that on several occasions we have had to come here and deal with issues relating to taxation matters. And very often we have had to adjust our laws in order to comply with some requirements of OECD and the other watchdog agencies that police taxation laws around the globe. And don't want to raise it for any big reason, because I think that we should be moving ahead with this product, but to recognize, of course, that there could be some implication in situations where we are allowing persons to come here to be classified as non-resident, so they don't pay taxes in Barbados, and in their country of residence, because obviously they're out of their country of residence for 6 months or 180 days or whatever it says in the tax laws. It's usually like a 6-month period. They get away from paying tax for that period in their their country of residence, inverted commas, for tax purposes. So that is something that could prop up, but I think if it does, and we know that the OECD is always moving the goalposts on these taxation matters, we will have to be prepared to deal with it if or when it does arise. Finally, Mr. President, I just wanted to touch also on, and I think Senator Greenidge may have also touched on it. I know that the Prime Minister has said whosoever will may come from wherever you are around the world, whosoever will may come. But I too have some reservations as to persons coming from particular, should I say, hot spots around the world. And I think maybe even if we do so agree that whosoever will may come, we must ensure that our protocols are tight enough and strong enough and enduring enough that whosoever comes there, and unfortunately we know, I mean, you know, we're not fallible. Some persons will slip through and they will get caught up in the community, and therefore we could possibly have that spread. And so all I'm saying is that let us make sure that the level of protocols which we have is sufficient to ensure that we mitigate against or try and reduce or minimize the possibility of as we open back up and as we go after this group of visitors, that we don't create other internal problems for ourselves and for the country. And so I wish the government well. I hope it works. I really honestly do hope it works, and that it helps us in terms of picking back up and getting our tourism operations running again and generating the level of income. But I think we need to continue to recognize that we have to be eternally vigilant. And I just want to make one last point as an appeal to Barbadians generally now, because I have noticed within the last, I would say, probably 2 to 3 weeks, it seems as though from the time the Prime Minister announced that the country was being opened back up, and that people seem to have thought that the COVID went away as well. And they seem to have been not that level of cooperation in terms of wearing masks. I seem to see less people now on the streets and so wearing the masks and doing the necessary things that we need to continue to do to keep the country safe. And so I appeal to all Barbadians to continue to be vigilant, continue to be safe, continue to mask up, so that we continue to keep this country safe, and that in that way we can keep it open for all these visitors that we hope will be here to enjoy it with us. And with those few words, Mr. President, I am obliged to you.
The President, I beg to move that this sitting be now suspended until 2:45, sorry.
2:45. The question is that this sitting be now suspended for the purpose of lunch until 2:45, I'm sorry, 2:45. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it, and we are now at lunch until 2:45.